These trees don't look like Texas trees. That's right, these are aspens. And like a good Texan, I'm escaping the brutal summer heat and I'm visiting Colorado. We're actually in Aspen, Colorado. We're gonna be touring some really cool projects and I got some cool details that supposedly I'm gonna see at a couple finished projects and houses under construction. Today's build show is sponsored by Delta Millworks. Let's get going. All right guys, first stop on the Delta Millworks Accoya Aspen World Tour is this gorgeous home. I just got the tour by the owner here and I gotta tell you, this is one of the most incredible houses I've ever been in my life. Gorgeous on the outside and the inside is twice as spectacular, frankly. Unbelievable. A couple things I love walking up. The landscape, I mean, it's just unbelievable. These grasses, the beautiful flowers. I also like how we've got a little bit of a concrete exposed form wall here. We've got some barnwood on these soffits, and then when you walk up to the entry, you've got these steel elements that are rusting out. Kind of harkens back to that old Colorado that I'm hearing from multiple architects here. And then check this out. We got this Accoya wood that's been gaitered by Delta Millworks, and it's in a different kind of pattern. This is like a board and batten. I've never seen this before. I really like that pattern, and that dark black really fits in well. The texture of the gaitering kind of giving you some life to that wood. So pretty. They've also face screwed it, which I really like. I think face screwing on an exterior wood like this, a great choice. If you ever had a board that got hit with hail or got damaged in a place that you wanted to replace, super easy when you do that. Now, a couple elements here that just blew me away. Number one, the windows and doors. Everything in this house, unbelievable. It's Bromboss steel, made in Italy. In fact, the owner said that he traveled over there while his house was under construction to see the factory and was blown away. And my buddy in Austin, Brian Long, has been to the factory and said it was unbelievable. But he tells me that these windows are triple glaze and thermally broken. And on the back of the house, there's a set of giant sliders that opens to an incredible view. They're right on the river. The owner told me it's some of the best fishing in the world right here. And there's so much to look at. The owners are art collectors from the inside, but on the outside, there's a bunch of antiquities. There's some World War II ship parts on the outside. There's a door that was Ted Bundy's cell door. There's a chunk of root ball that looks like stone that's petrified root on a turntable. Just so much to see. But then when you walk on the inside, I mean, absolutely unbelievable. The interiors are fabulous. Floating steel stairs, two-story volumes with just amazing artwork on every wall. And of course, I forgot to mention, when you walk through the garage on the other side here, one of the coolest garage doors I've ever seen in my life. A steel garage door that you press this big industrial button. I'm sure it was intended originally maybe for an airplane hangar. The door both lifts and tilts so it forms an awning on that garage, and it's a full steel and glass door. I can't imagine how much that weighs. The hydraulics for that are in the basement. Super quiet, hardly made a whisper of noise, and just forms one of the neatest architectural elements, I think, on the outside of this building. So much to see here. Just an amazing job by this architect and builder. Hopefully we can come back at some point and get a larger tour of the inside, because like I said, there was so much to see on this house. Every corner had something cool. So, all right guys, let's see what's next here in Aspen on the Delta Millworks and Accoya World Tour. Downtown Aspen, absolutely beautiful. And this for me is the centerpiece. Hotel Jerome, 1889. Look at this gorgeous facade on the outside of the building. Beautiful, super old brick with these stone lintels and these wood bands. Man, what a gorgeous hotel. Charles was telling me yesterday that this place, when he moved here in like the 80s or 90s, was in total disrepair and should have really been condemned. And someone bought it and remodeled and did an okay job. But 10 years ago, the current owners bought it and they have just done a fabulous job. I mean, look at this atrium area with the deer heads on the wall, the paintings, the fireplace. Gorgeous space. I'm not sure what's happening here exactly. I don't know if this is original to the building, but look how they've I'm assuming this is new in the last 10 years. They've opened this up into a atrium space. There's a glass roof above us, but this coffered ceiling allows all that light to come in. Beautiful old millworks, fully restored. This gorgeous oak. My buddy Brent Hall would love this. And lastly, the bar space. I feel like I should be meeting Teddy Roosevelt over here for a cocktail. Quite a space. Hey guys, I want to introduce you to Charles Cuniff, the architect on this project. Beautiful house, Charles, but it's not really a house, is it?
Thank you. No, it's not really.
So this is a rural fire station, is that right?
Yes, it's a rural fire station for the Starwood community. It has 2 resident firemen here, stationed here full time. There's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath up and a 2-bedroom, 2-bath down, with fire bays and 2 fire trucks here.
Yeah, this doesn't look like any fire station I'm used to seeing. I really, when I pulled up, thought this was a house.
Yeah.
And then maybe even an RV bay for a house on the side.
Right.
But of course, that's all your fire equipment over there.
Yeah.
Now, tell me about the architecture that we're seeing for this right-hand side. You're trying to make it obviously fit in with the neighborhood. What were some of the things that you did here?
Well, one of the concerns for the Starwood HOA and Design Review Board was that the fire station didn't really be an overwhelmingly looking fire station, that it was more residential than fire department. So we designed it to be house-like and to fit into the rural ranching vernacular that speaks to this whole neighborhood.
Yeah, and that's where that Accoya siding probably comes in too, right?
Right. The Accoya siding was a great choice for this because it's pretty much weather resistant. It maintains its color, and we thought it fit into the ranching vernacular because of its tone and texture.
I like that. Now, has that grayed out over time, or did that start that
started that way. It was pre-stained to be this color and tone, and it pretty much will stay that way. We believe it'll weather that way very well over time.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Little detail that I noticed too, Charles, that I liked from a builder's perspective. The outside corner over here, I saw you've got a metal corner so that you're not mitering the corners on that. I really appreciated seeing that.
Right.
That means that you're not having to worry about wood mitered corners opening up over time.
Right, exactly. That's pretty much the standard detail we use in this climate.
Yeah.
Because the wood in this climate tends to dry out pretty easily, and then things shrink. So that prevents that from happening. It doesn't expose it to weather.
That's really smart. Now talk to me about all the steel that I'm seeing, the rusty steel. Was that a design choice? Was that a longevity choice? What's going on with that?
It's a bit of both. Rusted metal, in the Aspen area, in rural Colorado, rusted metal is pretty common. Usually you'll see a lot of ranch buildings with rusted metal and stone and wood siding.
Going back to your gold mining days even, right?
Right, exactly. That was the material at hand, and that's the way people built.
Yep.
So we use that in a lot of our vernacular architecture.
I like that.
Yeah.
Now I noticed on your rusted steel downspout, there's a wire sticking up in there.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's snow melt, but that is definitely not in my builder repertoire in Texas. Talk to me about your snow melt system. Is that standard out here?
Yes, it is. Sloped roofs particularly, we have heat tape on the edges of the roof and also in the gutters, so that there's no point in which water that's melting can then freeze again before it exits the building.
Ah, smart. Yeah. Got it. And then I'm assuming the bars across the roof also have something to do with snow.
Yes, they're a snow bar, so that keeps the snow or ice buildup from sliding all at once. It also helps control the amount of snow and lets it melt more slowly.
Yeah, you could be walking up to the front door and get an avalanche on your face.
It's for safety and also to prevent ice damming.
Can we go take a look at the garage bay where the trucks are?
Sure.
Let's go do it. Every kid's got a fireman fantasy about driving one of these trucks or using the fire hose. Let's go see what this equipment looks like. I was told this is a wildland fire fighting equipment specifically made for this area. And in fact, as we were flying in, we saw a pretty good wildfire going on nearby. So this type of equipment obviously is what you need in this area.
Yeah, unfortunately wildfires are ever-present danger here.
Is that right?
Yeah.
All summer long pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Now a couple details I was curious about. When I was outside walking the building earlier, I saw a vent that had air coming out of it. It looked like 24/7, and it was in this back corner. What is that silver vent that I'm seeing right there? Because that's about where the exhaust was.
Yeah, that vent's radon. Up here in the Colorado mountains, we have a lot of radon gas inherent in the soil.
So it's a radon fan.
So it's radon. So one of the requirements in code, a standard requirement, is to put a crawl space and or piping underneath your foundation that then is vented out. And it's actively vented using an active fan that pulls the air out, so as radon gas is emitting from the soil, it's removed from the house.
Now we're slab here, I'm assuming, because you've got a multi-ton truck here.
Right.
But the house itself, which is next door, is that slab on grade as well?
Yes, the site that was here was an old parking lot in a debris area. There was a sort of a dumping zone where soil and other material that was taken out of the roads and everything else in the development were pretty much dumped over there. So this half of it was on original earth, and as the hill dropped away, that was on fill. And so we had to remove the fill and then build crawl space to support the residential side.
Is that pretty typical in this area, crawl space foundations?
Crawl space is probably the most common.
Not in-ground foundations?
No.
I would have expected full 8-foot deep foundations.
No, a slab on grade is not that common here. And our freeze thaw level is like at 4 feet, our frost level.
Okay.
So typical foundation is 4 foot plus depth.
4 feet down, that's so different from me.
And a lot of
I
times,
have this amount of frost line where I am.
yeah, right, except for last winter.
Yeah, exactly.
But typically, because you're digging 4 feet anyway, a lot of times we'll do below grade crawl spaces that are pretty much 5'6" high. So all of your equipment can go in there, run the piping back and forth in the house.
That's cool.
And that saves, it keeps the interior of a house pretty clean because you don't have soffits and exposed piping.
I can imagine. Yeah. Charles, tell me about these trusses. I love the look of these trusses. Was this a design choice or was that strictly utilitarian?
It's utilitarian first because it forms the structure to support the wide span of the roof. But it's made out of wood elements and steel.
I really like those. Looks like a double 2x6 bottom cord, double 2x6 top cord, and some kind of a bolted connection for steel, for those steel kind of cords, I guess, that are connecting them. And then they're top hung, it looks like, and bearing on the outside, and maybe top hung and bearing on this wall as well. That's a cool detail. I'd like to do that in a project someday.
Yeah, okay.
That's really nice.
It's basically a web truss that would be custom built.
Yeah, or you could even site build a web truss like that, potentially.
Yes.
That's pretty neat. Charles, great work. Beautiful project. I really love that this is not a new project as well. It's a couple years old now. It's weathering well. Everything's perfectly pristine. The firefighters are taking care of your building well. Yeah. Great design. Guys, if you're interested in seeing more of his work, I'll put a link in the description for Charles' website. He's doing some fabulous work in this Aspen area. Thanks again, Charles.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys, we'll see you at the next project.
Okay.
All right, guys, next up, a 1940s log cabin that's getting a really modern addition and has some cool details. I just got a tour with Steve, the builder from Okino's Construction, and this is another Charles Cuniff Architects project. We actually have the project architect Ashley waiting for us, but before I get over to Ashley, let me show you a couple cool details. These logs are original from the 1940s, and I love how the porch even has still some of the bark on it. They're telling me that here in the city of Aspen, it's really hard to do anything to the outside structure of these houses. Steve, the builder, even mentioned they wanted to replace the windows with brand new windows that looked the same, but no, they have really needed to restore these. So these windows are going to be 100% restored, but it's the original window. And also no double pane. This is just single pane glass, no storm windows, anything like that. So Steve's gonna do a really good job of making sure the clients are comfortable with some radiant heating. We're gonna look at that in a minute. Let's go meet Ashley and look at the other part of the building, which is the more modern section. Oh, I forgot one thing. Hang on one sec, come back, look at this. Steve did a really nice job. When he changed the roof on this, he was allowed to change this to a shake, looks like a cedar shake roof. Look how he's got a breather mat up there. That looks to be Dorkin's Trella 3D mesh material. So those shakes, when they get wet, they can dry top to bottom. You're also gonna see those ice dogs, I think that's what those are called. Those are gonna keep that ice, that snow from falling off into a big sheet. Now, when you do a tile or a metal roof, you can have one big stout bar, but when you're doing cedar, you need those all the way up to the ridge of the roof. And speaking of the ridge of the roof, check out this really nice detail. I was happy to see this. Steve pulled some stones from the chimney so that he could take that flashing back to where the flue is coming through. That flashing's turned up, it's laced in nicely to his underlayment. He's gonna put the same stones back to make sure the house is still historic, but then it's gonna be flashed correctly. Great detail. Let's go meet Ashley, the project architect. Hey, Ashley,
Hi.
Beautiful project, my
Nice
friend.
to see you. Thank you.
So we've got this historic building right here. And then what is going on with this more modern building right next door?
Sure. So there was an addition put on to the historic cabin in the late 80s. And by today's historic preservation standards, that addition would never have been allowed, right?
Wouldn't fly.
So part of the approval process for this project was to say, hey, we've got this existing addition. What can we do to help meet your guidelines to this day?
Yeah.
So for instance, they wanted the addition to look modern, different, but historically but compatible with the historic house.
Yeah. And so my guess is this wood, which I believe is Accoya as well, is helping you kind of look similar but different. Is that right?
Right, absolutely. So we wanted the wood look of the wood siding. We worked with Delta Millworks for the Accoya, and we were able to create a custom color for this project.
Cool.
So it's a 3-coat. It has a 3-coat system on it.
It's beautiful.
And you know, we love this product because it has a 50-year warranty and it's going to withstand the harsh environment here.
Yeah, you get it all here in Aspen, don't you?
Yeah. So we're, you know, really interested to see how this fades over the next 6 years, and then the owner will decide to refinish it or let it fade further or whatever he wants to do.
On other projects, I've seen you guys kind of pre-gray it, and then maybe with the idea that after 6 or 7 years it'll naturally gray and just leave that.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting here that you chose not to get a you know, a traditional bevel siding profile. This is more of, is this a shiplap that I'm seeing?
It's a shiplap, yep.
Yeah, with just a small gap in between the boards, so you really get that wood face. And next to the log cabin, you've separated with a little bit of steel too.
That's part of that differentiation between the old and the new.
It's a great detail. And these windows are beautiful. It looks like these are low end.
Yep.
I really like those. Those are pretty. Ashley, can we go inside and see some of the historic parts and then the
Absolutely.
new parts of the house?
Yeah.
All right, we'll meet y'all inside. Ashley, this is really cool to see. I feel like I'm stepping back into some Colorado history right here. What's happening in this main space of the historic cabin?
Well, we just want to preserve the historic quality of everything. So really what we're going to be doing is updating the lighting, updating the electrical.
Yeah. You mean you don't want to keep those massive amount of, I don't know what those are called. Those look like 80s floodlights or something up there.
Yeah, we're going to, it's all the lighting's going to be recessed. It's going to go away.
That's cool. Did I hear Steve mention that there's a fire sprinkler requirement too?
Yes, we do have to sprinkler a space. So we worked really closely with the fire protection sub to, you know, we're just going to run the sprinkler lines really close to those beams and just conceal it as much as possible.
What a fun space. And these windows are gorgeous. I can't believe these need to be restored. I mean, they look terrific.
These have been restored.
Oh, they have?
Yeah,
okay.
so these are the original windows.
No wonder they look so good.
Yeah, and somebody came, took them to a shop, and all the glass is original. And
I was going to say, if you close an eye and kind of pan the glass, you can see that wave. So that's got to be 40s float glass, isn't it?
Yeah.
They look to be in great shape. Brass hardware too. Feels really original. Ashley, thank you for the tour. I really appreciate it. I'm going to take these guys over to the... We just dropped a historic, I don't know what that was, but we're okay. Ashley, thank you for the tour. I'm gonna go check out the new construction part and show these guys some cool stuff about Colorado construction that I don't normally see.
Great.
All right, we'll see you later. I think this is really cool. Ashley designed the old house with the new house to have this little artifact showing. I really think this is gonna be neat. This obviously was covered with drywall for a long time, but check out the original, I don't know, maybe not original, but old chinking. It actually has barbed wire embedded in this, I don't know what that is, mortar mix maybe? The newer chinkings are really neat. I know Sashco makes some cool ones that are specifically made for log cabins that is kind of like big stretch, real flexible and sanded. But here's where you can see some of the radiant heating. This happens to be warm board, which we've talked about in the past. This is a plywood product, inch and an eighth inch thick, with aluminum. This green that you're seeing here is an aluminum skin, so that when the tubes get laced in here, this is usually like Uponor piping that's flexible. Now the entire floor will get heated, so the hardwood's on top of this that will radiate right on top. Now in the original cabin, Steve was telling me though that they're trying to keep the floor, they can't skin anything, so they're gonna have to do a staple up radiant in that space. My assumption is this is gonna be pretty comfortable. I mean, on the outside of this building, we've got 1 inch of XPS foam, and then on the back of the house, you can see where there's some rain screen details before that Accoya got set, and the roofer did a great job of doing a really nice flashing detail around the windows to give us the depth that we needed for that foam, for the rain screen, and for the Accoya. And then on the walls, Steve tells me he's gonna spray all these walls with a closed cell foam. So this should be a really comfortable house. Let's go upstairs. I'm gonna show you a couple more details upstairs. Steve walked me through this upstairs earlier. This is cool. I like seeing LSL studs everywhere. And Steve mentioned that, you know, this is just his go-to. He does this on all his jobs. And the architects mentioned that they love it because then you're not spending money on drywall touch-up. You just get that really smooth finish. Now, what is interesting about this house is there's a lot of steel in some interesting places. Little 4x4 post here supporting an LVL ridge. But check this out. This is a really cool engineering feat that Ashley was telling me they designed with the local engineer. I really like this. You've got this low-end timber frame window, a big window, not a lot of panes, just some big glass. But check how it's supported with this header. I've never seen anything like this. A piece of steel in an upside-down V shape, bolted connection, so it's bolted to the LSLs above. And then there's a bolt down here to the king studs, and the jack studs, it looks like, are also bolted to each other. And so that load path from the ridge is coming down the steel and then down those LSLs on both sides. And I guess I forgot to mention it downstairs, but there's also a steel beam across here that's then taking that load to the foundation. Very cool system. I really like this. And this low-end timber frame, so pretty. Such a cool product. Now, radiant floor heat, but the builder mentioned that they're also doing some Mitsubishi systems in the house for cooling mainly, but of course you can run them in heat pump mode and get some heat out of these. And this one in particular is a radiator style unit. I used to have that in an old office, so this will provide cooling to this space that otherwise would be hard to cool. And then let me show you this. This is a cool attic back here. If we can walk through where the electrician's working back here. Check this out. This attic right here, you can see the original decking, or probably the upgraded decking. There's the original, probably 40s decking. And this is the roof of the house next door with new framing. But check this out. This is the same Mitsubishi unit I have at my house. It's a low static pressure ducted system. Hopefully you can see with my flashlight in there. Very tiny unit, all mounted to the ceiling in here. And that's going to provide some air conditioning for this space. I love how it's tucked into this little space behind here. There's actually pretty good access though for service and for filter changes. Last thing I want to mention, I'm not going to go down there now, but earlier in the day, I started the tour out with Steve downstairs in the basement. They have an FAR requirement here in Aspen, which is a floor to area ratio requirement. I have that in Austin as well, which means that if you take your lot size, you multiply by some number, and you can't build any more habitable above ground space than that number. In Austin, that number is a 0.4, which means 10,000 square foot lot, you can only build a 4,000 square foot house. However, anything that's below grade is exempted, and I think here in Aspen the number is actually 0.3, so 3,000 square feet. And this lot is not huge. They were limited on how much they could build, but anything below ground, totally exempted. So they dug out a basement where there was just a crawl space before, and they did it in 4-foot increments because the city wouldn't allow them to lift the original log cabin, so they could do it all at once. So Steve was actually doing some blindside waterproofing and pouring concrete where the forms would be on the inside, and then the outside would get formed by the existing earth. Pretty wild project. Really, really nice work by both the architect and the builder on this project. Fun to see. Let's go see what else we can find. All right guys, another really cool project. This is Zone for Architects, and this time Hanson Construction, which is well regarded as one of the top builders in this area. And just walking up to this house, you can see already they're nailing the details. Check this out. Poured concrete walls right here, just buttery smooth. But look, all the things I care about, which is behind the scenes. Look how well they've detailed their zip system sheathing. Perfect taping job. All the nail holes, they've done what I've coined Zip 1.5, where they've hit all the nail holes with some liquid flash. And then this is a great tip for anybody building modern. You really want to see that roof membrane flap over the walls a couple of inches, and that's exactly what they've done here. They've flapped that roof membrane. I'm not sure what that is. Looks like maybe a hot mop roof that they flapped over maybe 8 inches on top of the zip sheathing. Some great details. Now, we're sponsored by Delta Millworks and Accoya, so I got to show you their details there, and of course they've nailed them. In the back of the house, they've just started on one of these kind of outbuildings. Let's go take a look over there. All right, check this out. Pre-weathered Accoya, meaning this was actually on the roof of the Delta Millworks building for some period of time. I don't know if it was 6 months or a year, to gray out in the sun. So this is really what this Accoya is going to look like for the next, I don't know how long, many, many years. No finish on this and no plans for a finish on it. And as we come around the corner, we can see what the rain screen detail looks like, but check this out. I've never seen this before. The carpenters over here made shims out of different size plywood, and they spray painted the edges before they cut them, so that all they do is go, okay, yellow is my 1/2 inch shim. I need to grab some 1/2 inch shims for this project I'm using, or I'm not sure what these other sizes are, maybe 5/8 and 1/4. How smart is that? What a smart detail. Now walk around the side and we're gonna show you how the Accoya was installed, because they're still working it on this side. Because it's a vertical install, you need to do a 2-layer rain screen back there. And they've utilized some plastic shims in some really smart ways. For instance, they're gapping these boards with these, looks like black 1/16 inch shims. So they're T&G, and when they gang them together, they're making sure that they're leaving a little bit of gap. That's smart for expansion and contraction. Then they're using some stainless steel screws on the tongue side to actually fasten these boards in place. And as I said, they've got good airflow. Check this out. We've got a core vent bug screen basically down here. And then remember how I mentioned they've got those plywood shims earlier? Here they are right here. They've got a green one, which looks to be a 1/4 inch. Now that Accoya is gapped off this flashing, and we're gonna allow some good airflow in here. And you're also gonna see another one of those at the top of the wall right there as well. So we've got good airflow. That's really best practice. We don't want our wood, no matter what it is, even a really stable wood like this, in a position where that end grain is gonna wick up water. So having that gapped by at least a 1/4 inch, letting that airflow, super smart. Great job by Hanson. Last detail that I've not seen before, check this out. This is an InSoFast insulation panel, and the project manager is telling me they're using this above grade because it has this. It has some kind of a plastic channel in there. So they've cap fastened this onto the concrete foundation. That's the attachment for these panels. But this is meant to accept a screw so that when they put the sheet metal down here, which will end up taking it down to the ground, now they've got something to attach to. I wish I could take you in for a full tour. There's so many great details in this house. I got a quick tour from the project manager, but this is all I'm allowed to show you on today's build show. Amazing job, really all the architects and builders here, but Zone 4 killing the details and Hanson just implementing perfectly. All right guys, next up, another Okinos construction project, Rowland and Broughton Architecture. Cool exterior details in this house. I love the mix of both wood and metal. I'm seeing a lot of architects here in Aspen using a multiple palette of exterior materials, and this house is definitely an example of that. One of my favorites, a good standing seam metal roof, and then a lot of metal on the front of the house. And then they've transitioned to Accoya siding on this kind of end gable space and on the back side of the house. One quick note before I get into the siding details, check out this, the pump jacks. When I pulled up, I said to Steve, how are those attached? I'd never seen that before. The pump jacks are attached, it looks like, to a board on the roof, and I actually had Joey fly the drone for me so I could get a close-in shot to see what's happening. The roofer came up with this detail, very cool. He's got basically 2 boards up there that the pump jacks are attached to, and those boards are attached to the roof by clamps, the same kind of clamps you'd use if you were clamping on you know, a solar roof array on the outside. No penetrations, no damage to the roof. So those clamps are on either side of the board, and then the pump jacks are actually attached to that board. so that the siding contractor or framer, I'm not sure who's doing his work over here, can do a section, move the pump jacks over, totally safe. Very cool detail. Now what's interesting about the wood and the metal is this kind of wainscot of metal runs all the way around the house. And then over here we can see a couple of the Accoya details. This Accoya happens to be a tongue and groove profile that's flat. They call this their coastlines. And from Delta Millworks, they pre-stained this with a 2-part stain to get this gray that also has some darker portions of it. I really like that. The whole idea here is that it comes gray, but the sun is going to gray it out over time so that they're not going to need to add finish to this in the future. I think that's really smart. Accoya is a great product for the exterior. It's going to last a long, long time. Why put a finish on it that you need to maintain every couple 5 years when you could let it gray out and stay? Oh, this is also the first time I've seen it with hand nails. I love this detail. We've got a nice full round head galvanized nail. The carpenters apparently hand nailed this and did a real nice pattern of 2 nails on every stud over there. A little hard to see here, but in the back of the house you could see that the rain screen on this is also like what Steve did on the other job. It's some strips of some core event. And then he's got this, this is obviously not gonna stay. This is an LSL board right here. He's got this here, he's got this above on the windows. He's just using this as placeholders so that later he'll come back and use an Accoya trim around those windows as well. These Colbys are really pretty, aren't they? Another great project with Steve and great architecture over here. So much cool stuff. Guys, big thanks to Delta Millworks and Accoya for sponsoring this trip. If you're not familiar with them, Delta Millworks, based in Austin, Texas, is selling woods nationwide. They're shipping it out to all these amazing job sites. I'll put a link to those guys in the description below. And Accoya, amazing project. I actually used it in my house in Texas in several locations. Delta pre-finishes it. They do all kinds of cool details like you see on this house where they actually nylon brushed it and pre-finished it. Amazing product to use on siding on the outside of a house, but really multiple uses, lots of places you can find for a beautiful Accoya like this. If you're not currently a subscriber, guys, hit that subscribe button below. We've got new content here every Tuesday and every Friday. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on The Build Show.